Just to let you know, this podcast may contain some offensive/explicit language. If you don't like that type of stuff, then you simply don't have to listen. But we've given you your warning. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of the Nash Tackle Podcast, where I'm pleased to say we have a guest on the show. We have top carp angler and all-round nice guy, Mr. Scott Lloyd. Thanks for joining us, Scott. How you been, mate?
Thanks for having me on, mate, again. And yeah, I've been all right, thanks. I'm sure we're going to get into what I've been up to in that. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good. You practiced a lot more of an in-depth intro there outside. I could hear you like saying it out there.
No, I didn't.
You've been rehearsing?
No, what I was going to do.
We've got Scott Lloyd, top carp angler, and welcome to the show.
Is that what you were reading off the back of your hand there?
The second we step foot in here, all we've been doing is bullying me. So I think there's something against it. I'll tell you what I was going to do is I was thinking we could, do you know, like on Top Gear where Jeremy Clarkson talks about the Stig?
Yes.
You know, I was doing some ones earlier, and then as I was reading them out, when it's just like his earwax taste of something, and all we know is he's called the Stig, I was thinking, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Thinking on the drive on the way here, I was thinking, yeah, we could get a really funny intro, and I thought, fuck it, that sound mental.
Yeah, it was.
So we just left it. Yeah.
So
I just went for that one basically.
He stinks of eggs. He's the man himself.
So we went for the classic.
Yeah, it worked. Hello.
We're in.
Yeah.
Let's do it. What are we talking about? I've got another meeting I've got to get to. I'm only joking.
With who?
I'm actually going Elliot's from here to talk about the fisherman's news. Here you go. First plug. Here we go.
Yeah, we'll start charging on the plug. See how many you've got at the end of the podcast. Yeah, as you said, how you been, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I've been bang on. I'm currently. Can we swear in here?
Yeah.
Well, saying that balls isn't a swear word, is it? I'm balls deep. I'm footballs deep in a campaign at the minute, Mr. Autumn. So I'm getting it dubbed at the minute by some of the boys.
Yeah.
But it's coming together nicely. It's at the stage now where, I mean, what are we here? Mid-September, end of September. So I'd say I'm about midway through now because it sort of starts to shut up around about November time on the deck, that is. Mid-November. Well, who knows? I don't know this yet. I'm over on Dinton, Black Swan. Probably worth starting with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the stock in there is just a joke, and I've been waiting and coming up with all sorts of excuses over the years. I've done time on there, but I've only ever done the winters, Zig fishing. So as much as I've been on and fished there, I've had some mega fish on the Zigs already. 57, 48, some special carp on the Zigs, but I mean, I love me Zig fishing, but there's nothing better than getting them off the deck, is there? And I thought, the stock, you're talking to maybe even 3 60-pounders, 10 to 15 50-pounders at the right time of year, and over 40 different 40s, and them Dinton fish are just something else as well. So it's not like I'm just reeling off numbers of big, like plain-looking sort of standard carp. These are proper. I hate the word proper, but at the same time, it's the only way to describe them.
Yeah, they're definitely some of the best out there in the country. I mean, I think we might even talk a little bit about like where you sit on what is the best out there, but we'll get onto that.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, we can get into that. But the way I see, the thing is I'm sure anyone that knows me, I could be on Dinton or wherever. What some people call a prestigious type carp or water one week, but next week I'll be on it anyway. A day ticket water, classic, linear, wherever fishing takes me, it takes me, and I just go with it. I have loads of different things planned in all the time. I'm not one of these that sort of stuck up my own ass enough to sort of say, oh no, I won't go and fish for them. I go fishing anywhere, bending the rods. It still gives me the same buzz. But obviously I have certain types of fish and, certain targets in my own head that drive me harder to work harder for them, if that makes sense. It's more about, for me, it's about the fish itself, but I need a superpower, I do, and I call it me power. It's the fish, but it's also everything else wrapped around that fish that makes them special to me. It's the lake itself, the makeup of the lake. If it's just a little sort of small round pond and it's a bit sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say the word easy because them small sort of 2 acre headaches can be the worst in the world. But something that's got shape to it, it's got depth to it, it's got size to it, more so these days especially, and a challenge and a rare carp is, I prefer, the main part of that is the rarity of it, like how hard it is to catch, and that's generally based on the lake that's lived in. It's not really, I don't think, something to do with the carp itself. It's more about the lake and the fish that's got swimming around with it. You know, how many of them is there? You know, that you might have to go through to get that one. And that's what Dinton's got in abundance. It's got, see, I call it Burfield syndrome, in the sense of what I mean by that is when I fished on Burfield, it gave me this feeling of not knowing, in the sense of I would be in a little tiny bay. I couldn't see anything else going on in the lake, and that frustrates me in a sense of I need to be about, I need to be working, blah, 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 you know, getting around. And I call that Burfield syndrome because that's how it affected me, and I've always taken that away with me. Like, so rather than it just being, it could be 100 acres, but if it's round or it's got shape where you can sort of see the whole lake from one or two places, then it makes it a lot easier. But as soon as you've got bays and nooks and crannies and hidden areas that you've sort of got to get about the pond to see the whole pond, that's when the challenge starts getting harder, because you haven't got eyes everywhere at all times. Yeah. So you've got to be moving and mooching and venturing round in the night and all that. So all them things are what direct me towards a target.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the venue. That's quite a big driver for you.
Yep.
Thinking about it, some of your recent venues, they've got also that element of like publicity to them. So as in the Willen Fish, it's a very public park.
We call it Milton Keynes. I don't want to name drop the lakes.
It's probably probably one of the most documented carp in the last like 3 years.
I blame Carl. Yeah. Carl's got a much bigger following than me, so everyone that made it really busy, it's Carl's fault.
But then Croc,
Croc.
That was the same. Very busy, very active lake shared by lots of other people.
Yep.
And then Dinton's the same as well, isn't it? It's open access.
It's not open access. I mean, it's probably the hardest water to get a ticket for.
No, but I mean, in like terms of the public.
Oh, so yes, sorry.
Do you quite like that element? Because those three have been three of your recent campaigns. Has that added to the lake for you, or is it just the makeup of the actual fishing and what's going on around you isn't really something that's brought into it?
I never really thought of it. It's definitely, I love an atmosphere. I mean, I'm a people person anyway. You know, like, I'll talk to anyone. You know, anyone walking around the pond, we end up chatting for ages and all that. Whether that be public or angler. I wouldn't say it plays a part in it, but at the same time, probably does, in the sense of it brings elements to them lakes, you know, whether that be swimming, skiing, boating, all that sort of, you know, by it being a public access place, they generally have them sort of things going on, which, yeah, I mean, you're sort of catching me off guard with it, really. Never really put the two together, but, yeah, the last few have been like that. Well, it is worth mentioning that I haven't done a proper season's sort of worth of fishing on a sole lake since Burfield, and I know I keep bringing it up. Like, I'm not getting Burfield syndrome here. I'm just bringing it up every 10 minutes. But that was the last proper sort of full out and out 4 seasons worth, or a full year's worth of angling that I did on a lake. I don't know why I've not gone back to doing that. So now these days I'll do a spring somewhere, a summer somewhere, an autumn somewhere, and a winter somewhere, because I don't know. I'm never comparing everything to Burfield, but I think I've become a little bit more wiser to lakes have strong periods and weak periods in different times of year. So let's take Stoneacres for an example. If I could now look back in hindsight, it's almost like the spring is the one. As soon as they've spawned, it's a really hard, tough period. The weed beds are coming up, they're drifting around, the clarity's gone, the fish are really, you know, scarce and sort of hiding in the weed beds or what have you. You're almost just slogging it out for the autumn. So there was a period of fishing there in the summer to be spent elsewhere, you know, and enjoy elsewhere. And again, in the autumn, it wasn't great, and the winter was dead as well. So if I could pick one period to go and fish on Stoners, it would be spring, whereas something like Dinton, White Swan in particular, fishes its arse off in the summer, you know. So I started to think, you know, lakes have these strong periods of time, why not piece them together and get a bit of everything? And that's what I've been doing in recent years, and it gives me breaks from lakes, because you can end up treading water, and you know what it's like if something doesn't work in the spring that you had planned for, you can quite easily start changing things straight away, and you're almost chasing your tail. Whereas I think you get to know a few different lakes. Basically, that's the way I'm doing it anyway these days. I'm sort of getting a few different tickets. I'm like, that's strong in the spring, I'll do it there. And it's somewhere fresh every sort of season, you know, and I've really enjoyed it. However, swinging it back round to Dinton, I'm fully hooked on that place, mate, and I'm just going to do a full year's worth of fishing until I get what I want.
That's you changing your approach then slightly. You've got the syndrome, because what I was just about to ask is, do you move around at different times of year for the reasons you mentioned with the weed coming up in Stone Acres? Is it your end game a specific carp? You know, are you going, let's say you know that the big one comes out in spring. Are you basing it around that's when the big one comes out? Are you there to catch the big ones along the way? It's like, what's your end game? Is it a single fish or is it to have a few of them?
Well, with Dinton, it's definitely a different story. I don't think there's another lake in the country, that I've got access to anyway, that offers what it's got stock-wise and the size of it. You know, it's 90 acres, Black Swan, and to have that stock in it, it's mad to think that tomorrow a 60, 10 50s and 20 40s could come out and I'm still gunning to get down there because there's loads more to play for. That's just a joke. And, you know, never in my life have I thought that I'll be able to say that, but it's true. So it's not, that element makes it a great place to fish and be a part of with the lads as well, because it's not all guns blazing, dog eat dog for one carp, everyone's all secret squirreling, and, you know, lads have got little bits and bobs going on, I'm sure, as have I, but at the same time, you know, we're all there. It feels like I'm part of what's going on there. You know, Simon Bartlam, who's sort of runs it and does the stocking and the Dinton fish and all that sort of stuff, is strained now, if you like. It's done a great job in making it run itself, and that's why I think a good syndicate will always tell you if it's a good syndicate by how little numbers drop. So, you know, most years no drops, one drop maybe or two drops, whereas sometimes you'll get syndicates where there's like 5, 10, 20 people dropping a year, and that sort of speaks for itself. That a good syndicate should run itself, pretty much. You know, you always get a little bit of bitchiness or whatever going on, or rivalry, but with that place, I think the stock makes it a lot easier because you're not just all fighting for the same thing, and it's probably what happens up north a lot. You know, up my ways, you know, it's sort of one carp that's special, and them lakes are sort of like they keep it quiet what they're doing, and everyone's against each other. It's a war almost, and you know, I don't like that, me. You know, although I do like just one fish to fish for, I don't like it when it becomes a war against people. You know, I think they're all enjoy the same thing, aren't we? You know, let's get on.
I didn't realise it was 90 acres. Yeah. That's like, does that give you enough? How many members are on there? Does it give you enough water to do your own thing? Because
100%, like, you know, and you've got there's a good split of, you know, you've got your general sort of local lads that fish the weekends. You've got you know, a group of lads that are sort of like myself that do your Sunday to Wednesdays or your Monday to Thursdays. You know, it's a 3-night rule, so it's split up like that. So everyone's got their fair roll of the dice, but it's big enough, man. You've got everything going on there. You've got bays, you've got islands, you've got, like I say, loads of restricted access and all that, and it just all adds to it, doesn't it? There's atmosphere, there's something going on. Like, I've done enough time sort of sitting on muddy farm ponds and that when I was a kid and just sort of looking at the same water and all that, and it does get a little bit, I don't know, bit boring sometimes, you know, doing that sort of fishing, and I like to have something going on and something to, I've got to have something that fuels me, man. It's got to get, you know, just to make me drive that 3.5 hour drive, you know, it's 170 miles every week for me, each way, and, you know, it's got to power me. I need that power, because the moment I get on that motorway, if I'm like, oh God, I've got this drive again, that's it, it's done. You know, I've got to have, come on, I can't wait to get there. When I'm leaving the lake, I'm thinking about going back and all the things that I'm doing, and, you know, it's non-stop, you know, it's for you boys know, you know, I do me 3 nights, I come back, I'm getting something on soak, I'm getting this charged up, I'm drying out the nets, hopefully, you know, although to be honest, I never do that. And I've got Darren on my case, you know, from Fortis, he's like, because I never dry my waders out, and you really should dry your waders out, because they just, that's when they end up falling apart on you, really. And he's like, just hang your waders up. I can't do it. Like, it's because in my mind, I mean, I get back fishing and my braid's still wet on the spills, you know what I mean? So I'm only going to get wet again. But anyway.
Yeah, Sam, and you said this year you're going to really go through with Dinton. You're in there, you're going for it. And I know we've spoke before, you're very like spring campaign, autumn campaign. What about the winter? Are you going to push through on a lake like that through winter? How do you keep the motivation high on a 90 acre pier? 90 acre. Got to be my Fendon farmer coming out there. 90 acre. Yeah, throughout the winter. And will you do it or?
Yeah, 100%. I've done straight winters on there already. That's all I have done previously. Just winter fishing, sort of December. He lets the Zigs on. The band all year. I think it starts at 1st of December and allows them till the end of Feb. So you've got a good few months of Zig fishing there, and they are wising up to them, but then big and slip up. Like I say, I've had some big. I had my PB mirror, 57 odd pounder on a Zig in the winter. I had another awesome looking carp called Paw Print 48, which was mental really. I sure it was like, I remember it being freezing, and it was in 28 foot of water, and I had it on a 26 foot Zig at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, it's just like, if I weren't on a Zig, I weren't catching that carp, was I? You know what I mean? I'm 2 foot down in the middle of the night. No one's fishing like that.
Do you think that gives you another lease of life as well, knowing this period's coming of, I can use Zigs at this point? Whereas if you could use them all year, things start to get stale, it starts to get cold, things aren't happening. Yeah. But in 2 weeks' time, boom, it can all change again. Do you reckon that is a little driver for you as well?
100%. And I think another lease, I sort of need to track back a little bit in the sense of I can switch into fish and fish's behaviour quite quickly, different modes. Like I'm going back to sort of talking about doing a spring here and a summer there and autumn here. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time fishing, more than a lot of people have, and I start to see a lot of similar patterns of carp's behaviours, and it's all you've got to do is just as quick as you can, look for them same signs and same behaviours and base them on weather conditions and angling pressures. So that generally what I say is there's only two things that will ever move carp, and that's a change in weather conditions or a change in angling pressure, by people fishing for them and them moving. So generally, this is the most exciting part about any campaign or any new lake to me, is about, I never do any sort of pre-digging too much, this is for the listeners really as well, because they might be thinking about starting new lakes, campaigns and things like that. I like to do a bit of pre-digging, get an aerial view of it on the Google Earth, and I like to, if there's any captures of the big one that I'm probably trying to go after, I like to know about them, but I don't want to know all wraps in swims and what this fish is called and all these things and the going baits this and the spots of this, I want to learn all that for myself. That's the most exciting part of any journey, any of these campaigns, is the learning is what attracts me. It's a blank canvas, and Dinton is now for me because I've zig fished it, but I've never found a spot in there. I've never put bait in there. I've just gone in, seen fish, boom, zigging. All you can do with zigging is change your direction of your cast, change the depth of it, the colour and the flavours, and it's pretty simple standard fishing once you get used to zig fishing, but there's no blank canvas to build from. They're just generally getting pushed from one area to another, and you start to see some sort of patterns occurring on weather condition movements. But anyway, swinging back, with when you're trying to learn fish behaviours, I'm basically noting mentally and physically in my phone and in my mind where these fish are going, what they're doing. I'm constantly on their arses, if you like. So to start this autumn, I spent very little time fishing and more time watching, looking, walking in the night, listening, baiting a few areas, checking them, whether that be with the boat or with the leads, so I'd find a stodgy spot, put some bait on it, and then lead it the next week, see if it's still stodgy. If it's gone hard, then they've had a feed here. What's changed in that time when I was here last? What was the weather? They've obviously been in here for a reason. Who was on? Did they get pushed there for a reason? I'm starting to build a massive picture now of why they go into certain areas at certain times of either the day or time of the based on the weather. So I'm starting to, what that allows me to do, and this is always the best part, is it allows me to be able to get ahead of the carp sometimes, because we've got this beautiful thing called the weather, and it's on an app. I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. With all these tech haters saying they don't like this and they don't like that, but they've used the Weather Channel since day dot, as far as I remember, which means we can almost cheat and see ahead into the future of what's coming. If that's not a way of cheating, I don't know what is, because the weather, will predict anything bigger than, a bait boat dropping your rig out. If you know where them carp are going in certain weathers, we're cheating, aren't we? Really, we're seeing into the future. So basically what I'm getting at is I can then now look at weather fronts coming in, and think, right, I think they're either going to go here or go here, based on all the things that I've learned. And there's nothing better than turning up, seeing them in a different area and think, nah, but I've got to think they're going to cut down here. You get your rods out, there's no fish there, and then the next morning this weather starts to turn, and then all of a sudden you see 100 yards behind you. Then there's 160 yards. Then you get a liner, there's a bit of fizzing, and and it's away, and that one capture like that is worth 1,000 captures of just turning up. Oh, what, you've had 5 of you, mate? How many wraps? What bait are you using? Right, I'll go in here. Yes, all right, you put your reds in, and you caught them, and they went in your net, and they go in your album. I've done it many a times, we all do it. But there's something special about building that picture, learning it's like hunting, isn't it? Learning what these fish do, for what reason, and then being able to get ahead of them, and that plan all comes together, and it's just like, that feeling is just mega.
Yeah.
It just comes back to the whole challenge side of things, and that weather, talking about the weather, and we all know the impact it can have, but one thing, just to what you've just said, just to give more evidence as to how important that weather is. We've been doing a bit of underwater filming recently. Loads of media out there. We've tried to give it a go, and I was fortunate enough to not fish myself, but to actually sit in front of a screen. And when you're sitting in front of the screen and you're not watching an edit of it, you start to see and create this bigger picture. Same with anything angling, like you're saying there, you're building this bigger picture, and it just becomes more rewarding when you put a theory. I expect X to happen. I'm going to fish Y. It produces Z result. And it's extremely rewarding. But just on that weather note, how much of an impact it had on carp in front of the camera, and this is a completely different story to what you're talking about, but just how much that played. You can talk things like rig mechanics, what baiting strategy, how much bait you're putting in, what bait you're using on the hook, but weather, talking about looking in the future, it's just like, I think it's underrated in that sense. And there's not a by the book pattern, it's not as if you get a warm southwesterly and they're always going to be on the end of it. It's specific to the lake, and so just on that, it's so important.
You know what, you're dead right, and I'm gonna get our own little underwater plug in here. When's your underwater around? What's going on? No, so I've done one recently, just to wrap it around what you've said there, and this is always great because it's almost scientific evidence that we've got to now prove these things by having underwater footage. I do like them for that. But I've done one recently with Elliot for SIP. We went over to A1 Pits, a bit northeast sort of thing. If you're from the north, you'd probably call that Midlands, but so we were over there. And, I don't want to obviously give too much away about what went on, but 100% the weather changed everything. There was a load of other things that changed, the way they fared and all that we did tactically, because I'm quite inquisitive as an angler. Although I didn't mess around as much as I wanted to, because obviously, with it being my first one with Elle, I wanted to make, get some captures, all that. But I've said to him, the next one we're going to do, mate, I've got some things that I now want to mess around with based on what I learned on the first one. Just out of curiosity that people might want to see as well. But anyway, back to that. The weather definitely played a massive part, and I think we do take it for granted. And you're dead right that the weather affects different fish on different lakes in different ways. And if anything, though, that's the beautiful thing about carp fishing. And, this is, I'll swing it back to the underwater. Everything changed every day. I get done sometimes, I catch sometimes, and nothing really changed apart from the weather. And I said I said on the cameras, I'm pretty sure it'd be in there, I love it because it's almost like underwaters are trying to unlock carp fishing, and that's what I don't like about them. Everyone's trying to find the super bait and the super rig. Every time it gets sucked in, it gets you a bite. Every time they see this bait, they eat it. Now, there's definitely things that will get you more bites, rig-wise, bait-wise and that. But the beauty of carp fishing is the failure as well. And if anyone ever finds that super bait or super rig, which they won't, actually. They won't. There's no right answer on every single day. And that is the beauty of carp fishing, because the failures make the success the best there is, because if we all turned up just backwards, cast out this super rig and super bait and just, sat there and it just zipped off every 10 minutes, trust me, this industry would be in trouble, because it would get pretty boring pretty quick, and I would soon be out of it, because it wouldn't, I'd be looking for something else in fishing, because that's not what I want. I want to get things wrong.
Yeah, you seen when they catch tuna by rod and line, and it's like, I don't think they even got hooks on it, and they've loads of people on a boat, and they just do that, bang, 1, 2, 3. And there's no enjoyment in that. Obviously, they're doing it for an industry. But imagine carp fishing was like that, where you go and you fish and you catch because, you know, you saw under the water that X bait and X rig equals fish on the bank. It would be so shit.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I love getting punished, getting beat up, it's them losses. As much as them losses break your heart at the time, it drives you even harder, even more to get it right next time. You're always learning. And you know, people always do, you know, I do get a lot of questions saying, how do you stay so motivated and that on the bank? And like, because, you know, I'm getting it quite a lot now because people know I'm sort of halfway through a campaign, if you want, and they're asking a lot of campaign-related questions. So it's an answer that I'm giving them quite a lot. And I say they'll be struggling or what have you. And I always say I never leave negatively or turn up negatively, because I always leave with some sort of answers. So even though I don't catch all week, say for instance, that's not a negative session. That's not something to be negative about. As long as I'm leaving with some information, I've found a spot, I saw some carp fizzing somewhere, I saw one show in an area. Generally, these campaigns and captures all come from one piece of evidence. Yeah, whether that be the croc, the willing, the whatever campaign, it all starts with one piece of evidence, and it's generally a show or some fizzing or a spot that I've found that is like, oh, that's different, you know. So as long as I'm leaving with something to take home to put into the next session, there's some sort of productivity there, isn't there, that like gives me the buzz. Like, so I'll be driving home like, oh, can't wait to lead up that area. Mate, he was in there, so I couldn't quite get there. So, you know what I mean? Or there's something to leave with.
It's a really good way of looking at it. It was almost like every session could be the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Every session 100%. Could be the start of
yeah.
the success at the end. So yeah,
that's it.
It's a really good mindset to have.
Yeah, that's it. I try and turn every negative into a positive, what people might see. So another good example of that is the winter. I will still lap in the night. I'll still turn up and get up at first light is a great one. Yeah, not everyone does it. Get up at first light, lapping in the night, climbing trees, looking in bushes. This could be minuses. Sometimes I do find fish, but so someone else who doesn't have this mindset might do all that, climbing trees, looking in bushes, getting up at night, burning yourself out, all this, and they might go back to the swim and be like, oh, well, that was a waste of time. They're not going to do it again. I don't do that. I go back to my swim and think, right, so they're not in them trees. I can see 40 yards out into that bay. They're not there. These birds aren't making any signs to tell me that they're there. So they could be here, they could be there, they might be there. You know what I mean? I'm using all these things that I'm finding to try and point me in a direction. I can pretty soon, if it's a 10-acre lake and there's got good trees around it, and I can climb up a tree and look into the margins, all that, you know, I can probably rule out 3-4 acres of water pretty quick, and all of a sudden that 10-acre lake, 6 acres, so they must be there or there. That's it. Boom. Let's go. They're either up in the water. Actually, no, them birds aren't twitching on the surface at all, so they're definitely on the bottom. Let's go. You know, and all of a sudden, because depth of water is size of lake as well, a lot of people forget about that. You know, you could have a 200-acre lake. If it's 2 foot deep, it's a lot easier than a 50-acre lake that's 40 foot deep, in my opinion, because you've got layers then. Layers is trouble, you know, because if we're just putting rigs on the bottom. So without getting into that, I'm trying to say about the positivity thing is a big thing, and I do need to cover my arse with this and say, look, I know some people aren't using fishing for what I'm talking about. Obviously, this is my way of using my passion in fishing. And what I mean by that is some people use fishing to get away from this, you know, and chill and relax. And I'm not saying if you're not doing it the way I'm doing it, you're doing it wrong. I'm just saying, even if you take one piece of information from this to maybe work that little bit harder, or, you know, if you think you're doing something wrong, you're probably not, you know. As long as you're out there enjoying fishing and using it in the right way, I think we're all winning.
Yeah, 100%.
I had to cover myself. I'll shut up now anyway. I'll take a breath. I had a Red Bull before coming, didn't I? You're going to get a rabbit.
No worries. Josh, how long we gone? 3 hours, is it?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention, I have had some good fish this, so the campaign, just to finish off on that. So, I had a mega one, you might have seen it on socials, floppy tail one here last week. That's a 43-pounder, absolutely madness. And we do need to touch on the fact that the fish that I'm actually after, although it's a list of many, if I could pick one, could quite easily be a British record this winter. and that's a drive in itself. I'd really love to catch a 60-pound mirror as well. So that is, there's definitely probably
just drop the as well in there
as well. Well, I've got to have the set. We're saying that it's a linear, so we we call that I need a mirror, a linear, a fully, a ghosty, a cut. No, I'm joking, but yeah, I'd love to catch that, and a British record is definitely something enough to fuel anyone, isn't it? And that floppy tail linear has put. So it came out at a similar time to Spike came out last. So the fish that we're on about is a big linear. It came out at 63.10 or something, about two and a half months ago, maybe 2 months after spawning. Anyway, it's a male fish though, but it was after spawning. It came out at just under £64, and that floppy tail came out at 30, just over 39, and I've just had it at 43. Now, it could be a female, you know what I mean, and all them sort of things. So, but I'm looking at it and thinking, they're clearly on the munch. If that thing has put on a few pound, like, we're borderline in here. I mean, what's the British record? 68.12, is it? 68?
I don't know, off the top of my head.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, it's upper 67, 68, something like that.
It's definitely 68. I think it's the parrot, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's 68 too. I could be wrong, but I should know that really, shouldn't I?
Yeah, this is where you need someone to go, just look at that for us.
Get out and pull it up on the screen, Josh.
So well, that's the driving force at the minute. If that's not enough to drive anyone, whether the record means anything to anyone these days, it definitely does to me. I grew up looking at British records, looking at front cover shots of it, and it does mean a lot to me. We won't get into the technicalities of that, but for me, whether it's a British record or not, a £68, £64, I can't believe we're sat here talking about £60. It's a joke.
Yeah, it's unreal.
It adds to the excitement, though. Can you imagine?
Of course it does.
Imagine if you know it's out of fish that's in your net. Yes, mission achieved. One of the best carp you ever caught in your life, and then that little bit on the side that's like, I could be the potential British record holder, and no matter what happens, it's never going to dent the achievement. But I can just feel that through your enthusiasm for it. We've got a couple of lads fishing it as well, didn't? And then
what do you mean,
Josh?
I'll get rid of them.
You've been out there, Josh, haven't you, on filming with Gary, and you come back and you get a bit of a buzz just being there watching him and things. So yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a mega gaff. Like, and just going back to what you said there, you do know when it's it because obviously it's got this spiky dorsal. So you know about it before you've landed it, which is always a bit horrible. I hope it happens in the night and it's just like, not 10 minutes of, it's it. Because that can go against you sometimes. As soon as you know a fish is it, it's like, oh my God, like you jelly legs and that. And that's the buzz, isn't it? That's a part of the buzz.
That's exactly the thing, isn't it? You're willing to, because sometimes you have to not think about it because you can manifest it into existence. We've played a clip before. It always sticks in my mind, that viral clip. It's the big one. It's the one he wants. It's going to fall off. He expresses that vocally, and it falls off. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you've just got to say, it's going in the net, whatever it is, because I don't. But that's, like you said, that's why it's so fun. But you just can't think like that, can you, on a negative basis? You can't.
No, as soon as you think it does generally happen. I've had it a few times. I know what you mean. As soon as you think it. But I think that's where, the getting out a lot, like I do, I'm going to say it as it is, getting out every week, doing 3 nights a week, I just had a couple of months off for the summer, I generally thought around doing charity stuff, tuitions, blah, 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 and you notice how weak your fishing is, when you first start back, you're a bit out of tune, you're not you're rough in the morning and, you haven't got that, your casting's a bit off, it's going left or it's not hitting the clip right and you have to. Whereas now I'm 6 weeks into this campaign and I'm like an absolute, ninja. Like it's like kettle on in the morning, like, and I'm in mode now. And what I'm getting at there is by getting out all the time, as much as I do, you start to become really in this sort of pattern. But also you're building up all the confidence in everything that you're doing, whether that be hook strength, line strength, how much you can beast a carp if it needs, you know what I mean? Or every little catcher, it's all pointing towards that end goal. So I know what's required or what I can get away with doing. If a fish is going for the treats, like, no, you're not, you know what I mean? Not, oh God, I don't want to, I can't be 50-50 with these things. I'm spending a lot of time I've stepped up like size 2.5 hooks and everything, like, and I've had to build confidence in them already. And it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I did lose one last week.
You can't end it with that bit. You can't talk about that.
Yeah, mate,
Size ones incoming.
Yeah. But no, it was my own fault. But I'm using like 4 pound test curve rods, braid straight through. So I've got to step that hook size up. So you're sort of giving, you're sacrificing a little bit of hook sharpness if you like. But you're up in the strength, and for me, the strength in the tackle is what's required. I could use a softer rod and lighter lines, but where I'm fishing is over a shelf. It's savage, so I've got the 25 pound like sinking braid on straight through to some lead-free leader. So I'd rather struggle trying to get that out than just go, you know what, I could hit that. It's 30 wraps. I could hit it with some thinner braid, and then all of a sudden you get cut off on that shelf, and it's your own fault, and it could have been that one fish.
You can't have regrets. Again, coming back to leaving a session, if you know you've done everything right, but if you were to sacrifice a little, you just can't, can you? You've got to make sure you're doing it.
That's what I was getting at there. It's like I can handle the loss because I know I've sacrificed maybe some hook mechanics, if you like, based on me having a tougher setup at this end, if you know what I mean. So I'd rather lose one to an up pull than lose one to a cut off, because then that is my fault. Whereas an hook pull isn't, and I'm willing to sacrifice the odd up pull to be able to have this tackle that if I up this 60 pound thing. And look, it's a long, lean fighting machine, isn't it? I mean, look at it. It's going to beast me. I'm fishing braid straight through on a 4 pound test curve rod, mate. I'm going to have to... you know what I mean? Man. So, yeah. Anyway.
Sick.
Yeah, on that note, that sort of leads nicely into... We're going to talk a little bit about your mindset around rigs and mechanics, because what I think is quite difficult this day and age is there's 1,000,001 different rigs out there. You get the trends, back when I was growing up, the Chod rig was so in fashion. The Ronnie rig's still consistently, I would argue that's been in the scene for a number of different reasons for a very long period of time.
Yep.
From what I've seen, you've been very individual, unique about it. I'll be interested to know whether you've taken any pieces from other anglers in the trade, different companies and that, but something that a lot of people know you for is your Noodle Rig. And I'd argue that it's very, very difficult to have that much of an influence, because the Noodle Rig obviously was unique to you when you first made it public and things like that now. But I see this rig quite regularly, used by people, which has to be on the back of you. So that when it comes to that Noodle Rig, was it an invention of your own?
Right.
Where did you take inspiration from? And is that something that you just use solely now?
Right. So just to go back to you saying about all these different types of rigs, and there's a few gimmicks out there, and there's a few, but without getting into that, there's one thing. I'm going to put this question to you. What is the one thing that all them rigs that you have mentioned, whether it be a Ronnie, a Buddy, Chod, whatever rig, what have they all got in common?
They've got a hook on them.
They've all got a bloody hook, yes.
10 points for Dan.
Well done, 10 points. No points for you so far, Alfie.
I was going to say, you've given him that one before, and you were too quick.
Yeah, so they've all got a hook, and the hook, and the saying, I always say, sort of hook, line, and sinker is basically what you need to catch them. You don't even need the sinkers, really, to pin it down, but a hook and line is all we need. You don't even technically need a rod, so it is a hook and line, but there's certain things definitely that I think play mechanically into having a better way or a better chance of hooking them. But yes, so yeah, as long as you've got a hook on, you're in with a chance is what I was getting at. But yeah, obviously mechanics is definitely a thing, and I play around with a lot of things. Like sometimes I shouldn't be playing around with certain things on some of the waters that I'm fishing, and I should maybe use it for when I'm not being so. Like I've been playing around with a couple of things in this campaign, and I shouldn't be. But if I'm so adamant that something's going to work, why not? And if there's a better place, if there's one way of building confidence in a rig, it's on a place like that. And that's one thing I will say about any rig. We'll come to the Noodle in a minute, but I always say I've got one type of pop-up rig, one type of bottom bait rig, one type of bag rig, one Zig, which is now the Hinge Zig. That is...
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But that is honestly another level. I've got one type of Zig, one type of floater. I haven't got multiple different. I don't use just going to try a Ronnie this time, or a Hinge this time, or a multi pop-up bottom bait, double back bead, not whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I've just got one for each situation because they're all different ways to angle, and they all require a different type of rig. And I only use a pop-up to get the hook off the bottom. And the reason I want to get the hook off the bottom is because there's something on the bottom that allows me not to put it on the bottom. Because in my mind, whether we've seen it different on underwater or not, I feel that the fish I am fishing for sometimes, depending on the time of year this is as well, won't just be a sucker for a pop-up in the middle of a clean spot. And in my mind as well, I've been doing a lot of boat fishing and all that, you know, putting a rig straight in the middle of a spot, popped up, different to all your freebies, just isn't the one. Like, you know, I want it to match everything. I mean, why all of a sudden is it like, oh, we'll give them all this free feed, but when it comes to the upbait, we'll pop that one up. You know, I don't want to do that unless there's weed, there's chod, there's debris down there. I've got to get that up at the bottom to stop it being snarled up. So the answer to that sort of question is, why do you use a pop-up? Not that you asked me that question, but I'm giving you.
Who said that?
Yeah. Well, I just think it's always good information for people. You know, if you're listening, trying to pick up, you know, goods, you've got to have a reason for using a pop-up. Not just like, I just fancy a pop-up today. I don't think that's a good enough reason. I'm doing it because the spot's telling me that. I automatically switch to pop-ups around this time of year, just for a very quick period when we're in fall and the leaves have come down and I see them sat on the bottom in the margin. Even if I was there the day before and had bites on bottom baits, all of a sudden if them leaves are on the bottom, they could be on the bottom on my spot and I'm not going to feel them with a lead. So unless you want to go through the pain of having to try and rake it off and all that, fish pop-ups, get a couple of bites. As soon as you've had a couple of bites, I can get back on the bottom because I know that them fish wafting around down there has cleared it off for me again. So yeah, pop-ups, bottom baits. I use a hinge for a pop-up and the noodle on the bottom. Coming to your question, 15 minutes later, the noodle rig all started from, I used to use long shank curve hooks a hell of a lot, like your nailers type hooks. Size 8 nailer, a little bit of shrink tube, just to take the edge off the hook, just to open the gate, keep the gape open, and then exactly the same, you know, hook link as I would with a noodle, you know, blowback style, and that's what I used to use. And then it come pretty evident that, you know, them hooks weren't great for sometimes fishing weed, you know, and you could if they get caught in the net, they can be quite savage on the fish's mouth and all that. And there was a few when I went over onto Lynch, you couldn't use like long shank curved hooks. So basically, just if you have a look at it, it's just a long shank curve up, but it's a wide gape type hook with a piece of shrink tubing. Or now I've got the kickers, thinking anglers kickers. If anyone wants to, I'm on commission. I'm not really. No, there's loads of things out there that can create that. You know, and all I've done there is just recreated that curve of a long shank curve, and your eyes down there, and that's exactly what it is. And the reason I didn't call it the Noodle Rig. It's just my nickname is Scott Noodle after Scott Poodle. After Pot Noodle. After Pot Noodle. Kev Hewitt gave me that name because I used to live on pot noodles and porridge at the lake. And he used to call me Scott Noodle. And then people just started associating that rig with me. And it was like, oh, that's Noodle's rig, that is. That's it. And then that's where the name came from. So it wasn't like I was there like, oh, I'm naming it this and naming it that. But well, evidently there was always rigs. I'm not saying I invented it in the sense of it's a bloody rig with a kicker on it. Let's have it right. You know, the guy who needs the appreciation is the guy who invented the hook, mate. You know, like from being a bent pin to a hook. You know, and then everyone else is just making something with his components. You know, so yeah, it's just, and there's plenty of rigs out there that were around before I started messing around with it. So
yeah, just touching on what you said as well, I think one thing that's quite evident is confidence is really high for you. You've got those 4 rigs for 4 situations and you are super, super confident in it. Yep. However, you did say you started to tinker with some things. So at what point do you start to go, I'm super confident in it, but it could be better?
You know what? When I say tinker around, all I've started trying to do is and when I say tinker, it's very slight because there is quite a lot of fish in Dinton and you can get these hits. And I just thought, you know what? Why not try and play around with a quicker way of changing the noodle? So that's all it was. It wasn't like I was changing anything major. I was just trying to, because to be honest, I don't pre-tie rigs. I turn up, I tie, you might get lucky one day and I open my box and there's some in there and I'm like, yeah, but then I've got rigs. But generally I just tie rigs to the situation I always tie on with a grinner swivel end, so I don't have them like pre-looped or anything and hook them on. I always tie on because length is everything, so they say. No, length changes, you know. Sometimes I'll be using, if I know I can get away with a 3-inch noodle because I've not got to blast it and it's going to tangle, you know, if I can get away with it real short because I'm lowering it in the edge or I'm just flicking it out and I'm going to get a great view of it fluttering around, yeah, that's definitely not tangled. I'll use them smaller, you know, because, you know, length of rig is everything. It's not really something I really touch on, so because it's quite important to me. But, you know, the bigger the rig, in my opinion, you know, the more you're asking of the hook, you know, so because the lead comes into the play quicker, you know, depending on which angle they come from. And this was evident on the underwater. Every fish that came over the lead and took the rig, boom, it was nailed because it instantly tightened up. But anything that come towards it, you know, that's when I was getting done. So it just, it definitely confirmed my theory that using a shorter rig to get it all tightening up quick is you know, you're relying on your lead a lot more than people think. Because let's have it right. I mean, we're asking a wet, slimy, moving creature to hook itself with a 0.01 piece of metal and then burst off. And, you know, there's a lot that we're asking from it, isn't there? So, yeah, anyway, swinging it back.
It's all good. Vucin, he did a lot of underwater filming just for his own personal gain, like years and years and years ago. And one thing he said is like, it's astounding that we ever catch anything at all. But it's also astounding how like you ever blank. Both in the same guys, like you were saying just then. It's like,
so just going back, sorry, to the length of rig thing, and I never tie him off because it's like, say, when I had that floppy tail the other week, I turned up. I'd been sort of prepping a couple of zones, but I turned up. I'd done all the homework and all that, so I started to think, right, now I'm going to fish for what I see. I'm going to put some time in. There's captures to be had here. I was sacrificing captures before to do the homework. I mean, if I showed you my phone for my notes now on Black Swan, it's like spots. Yeah, I turned up. They were fizzing. I thought, right, they're in the silt. It's a great thing to know, isn't it? You know, well, they're fizzing. They tell me what they're feeding on. I could go off on another tangent here.
don't.
But yeah. Yeah, they were feeding in the silt, and with when you're fishing in silt, you know, I've done it from the boat, and you can put sort of lead in there, and it just goes, and everything disappears, and you're like, so, you know, I started using, actually, you know, gauge the depth of the silt with some floss. I don't know if you know how to do that, but anyway, I sort of knew that it had about 6 inches of silt depth. So what I was doing is I was putting about a 7-8 inch noodle on, casting it out, letting it plug, bump. So you got to imagine that lead and all the rig's gone in, and all that's sat on the top there is that noodle just kicked over. So therefore, I love fishing in that style because I've only got a 1-inch rig out there. I've managed to cast an 8-incher out, not have it tangle, beautiful, but then all of a sudden that rig is just turned into a 1-inch rig. I mean, there's an invention for anyone. If you can get it to be, you know, you know, I don't know how to put it, but yeah, all of a sudden I've cast this 8-incher out, and now it's one inch out there, and that's how I was catching them, and it was bang, 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 and every one of them was nailed, and I could picture it in my mind how it was sitting. Sorry.
No, cool. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Sorry.
Have you got another one? Oh yeah, you
No,
wanted to ask about the Hinge, didn't you?
Yeah, your Zig rig. What I did notice, actually, I was just doing a little bit of research, you know, just as there's anything out there. Forums these days, pretty dead. You know, it was the old school. I used to do it as a kid before Facebook, before loads of other forms of social media. The ones that are still going, it just popped up. And this is credit to your influence ability, really.
Okay.
You teased this new Zig that was coming out, but someone had actually created a forum to discuss what it could be. So you'd actually got a conversation going before the actual invention had come out. And I thought, fair play, mate. You know what I mean? That says how much influence you can have over people. But Hinge Zig, is that what you call it? The Hinge Zig?
Hinge Zig, yeah. I was calling it the Super Zig when I was teasing it, because obviously if I said Hinge Zig, people would have just known what it was instantly. But you know what? I'm going to have to show you boys one of these because it looks, I'm telling you now, because everyone that's seen it, before they've seen it, have been like, nah, it's too savage. You know, we're all trying to create this, like, you know, damselfly on your Zig and all this. And before you see it, it's like, nah, it's too savage. You know, we can't get it in our minds that could possibly work. Nah, they're going to clock it. They're going to clock it. But, I mean, why all of a sudden is it, because it's up in the air, they'll clock that? We're putting them on the deck all the time, mate. You know, like, as cruder than what this is. But honestly, when you see it, I've got them in the van tied up on a little bin. You usually go, oh, I didn't realise it was that subtle. You know what I mean? I'm still using a size 8, and I'm using the finished sort of chod filament you can get through a size 8 twice, and the swivel on it is a size 20. It's all refined, very small components. But again, it was just a mechanical thing. I wanted to have that. It all started on White Swan, probably talking about 6 years ago now. I found some fish in Headfoot Corner, it's called, and they were under the surface, and I cast these 2 zigs down. I knew the depth, did the downward measure sort of depth thing, so I knew I could put them a couple inches under the surface. They're right on the top, and I put a red one and a yellow one down there, so I could physically climb back up this tree. There they are. Oh yeah, and that's it. And I watched these fish time and time again just come in like that. Didn't hook a single one. I must have watched them get sucked and blown out. 5-6 times each, and from that day, I had seen myself get done on Christchurch years and years ago, a few times fishing down the reeds. Sometimes when it all goes right, we hook them, same as on the deck, but there's a lot more chance of that it not working on a zig, because all of a sudden we've got, the way I explained it when I brought this sort of new theory out, this Hinge Zig out, was, would you cut a normal conventional zig down now to be 6 inches, put a little piece of putty under it and use it as a pop-up rig? No, you wouldn't. It's not got any mechanics to it at all. So all of a sudden, why would we put 12 foot of line between it and expect it to do a different or better job? It doesn't, unless it's coming at it. You got to think about toes and bows and sediments, making it sit and curve and sag and all these things that come into it. It's not just sat there taut like we think, Obviously, I've seen them from the boat and tested this so many different ways. And, there's a lot of play there. And you got to imagine a piece of foam goes in, it goes to the roof of their mouth, and it just comes out, mate. It's got no mechanical value to it whatsoever.
Well, to be perfect, when I first see it, before listening to the video, but I saw the image of it, I was sceptical. Perfect. I looked at it and thought, that is overkill, sort of what you alluded to. What you mentioned there as well, it's when you said that you could visually see the carp getting away with it, that's the evidence that I would need. For me to consider giving that a go, which obviously you already had, I'd have to see carp getting away with it, because I love zigs. Yep. Love zigs so much. People have said, what are you going to do now Nash bait's gone? I said, I'm just going to get a black foam sponsorship. That's all I need. I absolutely love using them. And I wouldn't, and again, in the video you did with Thinking Anglers, you mentioned hasn't really evolved much. You said the liner style things with the foam, zig screws and things like that. But you are right, mechanical-wise, it hasn't changed. So to hear that, it has got me thinking,
Did you see an instant difference since you started using it, or did it take a bit of tinkering to get it?
So I started it. I've tried loads of different ways. I did a Ronnie style one. I knew it needed mechanical. It needed spin. It needed to be able to spin and go in. And basically, if they're not coming from the right angle and the carp is moving, this is the thing as well. It definitely picks up more bites and it all depends. If the carp are zooming around like they do in the spring, everything tightens up real quick, But it's when they're moving slow, and there's a load of sag in it, you know what I mean? It's not tightening up to the lead real quick. A moving carp is a lot easier to hook than a non-moving one. If they're feeding, and that's the same on the bottom, we would have all seen it, and we would have seen it on underwaters. If they're feeding like slugs, like that, and not moving, nothing's tightening up. So it's the same on the zigs. And basically, the hinge factor, I'm a hinge guy anyway. It's all about that curvature on the back. You touch the back, the hook spins in, and it just made total sense. And I started with using just a normal hinge on the top, and I thought, no, I need to refine this down. But the more and more I got into it, and the more I started to think, I actually started to just blacken them swivels out and almost make it look like a bit of something else in the water column. I'm thinking, you know what? All of a sudden, I've got 2 hook baits on here. They don't know that's a swivel. They don't work in Japan or China knowing, oh, no, I'm not touching that. That's a swivel, mate. Fucking Kim made that. You know what I mean? They're not seeing that. I've caught fish on fag butt sizes of foam. I've seen them sucking leaves mid-surface. I've watched a baby black sucking a crisp packet on the bottom and blew it out, and it was orange. It was mini cheddars. They're inquisitive creatures. They're just inquisitive. And I think Alan put it best. I had Al Blair, at doing a slideshow for the fishing show for me, and he was talking about zigs in it, and he put this picture up. Only Alan could make this make sense. Honestly, his way with words and pictures and how he puts you in the situation is amazing. And he just put this picture on the screen of a big yellow balloon with a smiley face on it. I thought, where's this gonna go? It looks like a rave scene, you know what I mean? Like, and he started talking about zigs, and you'll get some people who are just gonna. It was on about like, if I walked in my house one day and all of a sudden that was stood there in the middle of the hallway, it shouldn't be there, I'm going to be like, whoa. Some people would freak off and be like, nah. And then all of a sudden one day I'm going to go in there and go, what is this balloon? You know what I mean? The way he puts it is a lot better. They're inquisitive creatures, and eventually they will succumb to it if you keep teasing them with it. That's the way I see zig fishing. But yeah, zigs are a massive edge. I've gone way off there.
No, it's right. I've heard seen Blair's thing as well, and he always says, like, you'd go up and poke it, wouldn't you? Yeah. Or you'd move it, you take it, well, what's he doing there? Move it. Yeah. And that's what they're doing. They don't have hands, they're just sucking it there, just having a little look, and hopefully by that point it's too late.
Yep.
So it's imitating food at the end of the day, How many times do they eat an insect and get dragged out the water? Not as often as they eat a round ball on the bottom.
Yeah, sometimes, but I think as well, sometimes it's not about food. It's like you say, it's just having, what is that in my living room? Suck it in, too late. But one thing I was going to ask about him is, do you think, or do you have to counteract those extra components in terms of a sinking monofilament and a swivel on there as well, with a heavier bit of foam or a bigger pop-up? Or
yeah, I noticed that some of the smaller bits of foam weren't going to pop it up, but to be honest, you know what, I'd got rid of the swivel and I back-to-backed it, the little bit of a filament, I don't know what you boys would call it, chod filament, what have you. I'd back-to-back it and all that, and I thought it's a weak point, and to be honest, it doesn't spin as good as a swivel does. Yeah. Nothing does. So yeah, I just made it with a swivel. I did it where I tied an open loop, if you like, at the end, like you'd have at the end of a rig or what have you, and tied to that. It gives it the swivel was everything, and the more I got into it, the more I started to see that it was just an extra bit of hook bait. And to be honest, the only extra component I've put on there, it looks crude because it's just that little bit thicker. It's got a swivel on it. That's the only. There's one extra component I've done there, and it's a swivel. But I mean, swivels create mechanics, right? Surely, otherwise we wouldn't use them. Why are they in lead clips? Why do it's mechanics, and it's also anti-tangle. And I'm telling you now, you don't get tangles with this rig. This is another thing that the swivel did for me. Whereas you guys don't know about winding in, and they're all twisted up and that. This all takes a twist out, and when you're casting them, it kicks out so amazingly. Like it's almost like it's you very rarely get tangles with zigs unless the wind's in your face, because obviously that foam picks up that wind and it's coming back onto your main line. That's when you get a tangle. If you've got a crosswind or a wind coming off you over your back, then that's when you won't get tangles. But anyway, or flat calm is a bad one for zig tangles, but you can just see it in the air so much better. Like it's physically there, and you just know it's not tangled. It's the water harder, everything about it. I love it. Give it a go. Honestly, the results are there to be seen for yourself. Some people might be like, I'm not trying to sell anything here. I haven't got any pre-tied ones that I'm going to put on the market next week. I'm just trying to, I found something else. I want to try and help people catch more.
No, it's great. Right, next up, I've got some questions. I put on my story the other day, and so I've had a load of responses come in, so I'm going to pick out a few of them. I know what you like. Don't go too hard on them.
Sorry.
Just give us a short answer.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so first one. Did you ever have a go for the Tatton Common? And if not, do you regret not having a go?
No. Cool. Next question. I did. I didn't go for the Tatton. So I did fish there a couple of days. I did a couple of day sessions there. I was thinking about working it out. I did actually take Miles's photos of the common, so that's what sort of got me. I sort of lived that campaign a little bit with him on the phone, blah blah blah, and every sort of evening or day, sorry, that Miles was there. He would ring me, we'd be chatting about it, and then when I saw it on the bank, that's when it gripped me. And I did do a couple of day sessions, and yeah, I regret not having a goal for it, but at the same time, there's loads of fish out there, and there's loads that I didn't get to catch. So
I was going to say loads that you have can target, loads that you can't target. Life's too short. I've had one here about the Noodle Rig, but hopefully that's already been answered.
I can talk about it again if you want me to.
No. This one's a funny one. I wonder how you answer this. Are you planning on targeting the Lord of the Manor? And if so, which of your top 5 captures would you sacrifice for that to go in? If you would sacrifice any.
What, that I've already caught?
Yeah. Your top 5 carp. Would that replace any of your top 5 carp?
You know what? It's not really doing it for me, that fish. You know, I've seen it in too many hands now, but I suppose that is the case with a lot of fish. But, you know, it's not even that. I don't know. I would have a go. What? I'd love it in my album. I'd have a go for it.
Of course.
But it's a long way away. There's a lot of water between me and there. You know, and I know I'm already travelling a few hours, but that's that bit more. And I'd obviously love a big old fully to go in the set.
Yeah.
But
it's another 60 for the 60 set, isn't
another
it?
60 for the 60 set.
Gonna have that Lynn. Gonna have a fully. Yeah. And well, to be fair, I think your top 5 carp is pretty hard to shunt one out for another one.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to shunt one for it. I wouldn't like to do it even if it was anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the ones
yeah.
that I've caught are special to me already. Nothing could replace them. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to have it. But would I go and sacrifice? Well, I've got a lot of tickets at the minute, man, and a lot of incredible carp on my radar. Maybe one day. Give me a shout, mate. I'll come and do.
Wait till it's 70, yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for 70 now.
This is one. When are you going to go on the Quarter podcast?
I haven't been invited.
Jesus. I thought you were going to say this afternoon. That's
yeah,
your next
I'm on my way over there.
This is quite an interesting one. What was the turning point that you got recognised in the UK carp scene?
I would say probably Wind Chill.
Not this podcast.
No.
Okay.
No, this has probably sent me down the rankings. No, probably Wind Chill. I was wrapping around the right people by, you know, not purposely. I mean, I was wrapped around the right people. That's the right way to put it. I was just in and around the right place at the right time, and I was catching carp. And I mean, let's have it right. I was using fishing, and I still sort of probably do subconsciously, to stay out of trouble. You know, fishing's my getaway from all sorts of things that I could be getting up to if I weren't fishing. And at that sort of period in my life, I was a bit of a naughty boy, and fishing, I pretty soon figured out that fishing was my safe space. Although I still managed to get in trouble since a few times. But yeah, fishing was my safe place, and that's what drove me to go fishing even more. Like, yeah, I need to go fishing. And I started to, you know yourself, lads, as soon as you shut that door or you open that boot or you push that barrel on the pond, your mind is elsewhere. So yeah, fishing's a great thing, man.
Yeah, sick.
I don't know if that answered the question. I don't remember what it was.
It was, what was the turning point you got recognised?
Yeah, 2009, 2008.
Nice. One thing, he said, or a few things, but I'm going to keep it with one. One thing you wished for, you wished you knew sooner in your angling journey.
Oh, that's a good question.
It's a good question, that, isn't it?
That's a very
well done,
good question.
Carp DMC.
Well, the lottery numbers and in carp fishing, one thing I knew sooner. Ooh. Oh, I don't know, man. Probably figuring out that lakes fish different at different seasons, because I've really enjoyed that, and it's answered a lot of questions for blanking and that. People blame themselves, and I mean, yeah, there might be a right way to maybe catch fish on a given day, but sometimes they're just not up for it. So I think that's what I touched on earlier about knowing the stronger and weaker parts of a lake are seasonally generally. Mm-hmm. Probably would like to have known that.
It's a good one. I got one more. This is actually from Dave Robinson. How big was the common?
What common, mate?
Which common? The common.
I've had a few big ones now. We don't know, do we? He's been mugging me off on, because I've bought myself a pair of 120-pound scales now, haven't we? Ready. I'm not gonna. Well, hopefully I'm not gonna. Well, hopefully I am gonna have to use them before it. But yeah, I bought a set of 120-pound scales for the big one if I do get it. But yeah, what he's referring to is I only had a 60-pound set, and we weighed it and thought we'd done it all right. But on the Burfield Common, but I don't know. Nobody knows, and I'm glad I don't know.
So there was
a mystery.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, it wasn't in hindsight. After the fact, and it was put back. You were like, wait a minute, was this bigger than?
No, it
has?
come
Is
out
that
about
how-
6 months later. A film came. It might have been a year later. A film come out on it, and the weigh-ins on the film, and it just spins round to 62, dead, bump like that.
Right.
And what no one had realised, some guy from either Weights and Measured or Ruben Eaton or something had messaged me saying, "You do realise it was bigger." Obviously, it's grabbed me attention.
Oh, right,
He said,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you look in the video, you've bottomed your scales out there. Little did I know, they only went to 62. And we only got 62.8 because because it was such a big weight, we were right, we've got to weigh the swing after now, and it was 8 ounces down, so that's where we got to 62.8. But in the film, you'll see it just go bump and just dead. So we don't actually know.
Right. I didn't realise it was that far.
Yeah.
In the future. that you found that
I
out.
kind of wish I didn't know. Maybe that's what I wish I knew in hindsight. To carry 120 pound scale. Well, no one knew it was going to be that big. Did we? It was 57 pound. It's ever been. No one thought they're going to catch it. Let's have it right. I didn't think I was going to catch it. You know what I mean? I may as well not even had scales.
Can't dwell on that, can you? Really?
It's just a lot of luck on that place, But anyway.
Yeah, cool. That's all my listener questions. So, Alf, your go.
What was on the schedule? You really like taking them biscuits in.
Well, I've got some exciting
Fun,
things
innit?
going on in the background.
I was about to say that.
Is that what you're going to say? Yeah.
That was the next thing.
Okay.
Fisherman's News.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a relatively new venture. It's had a bit of an evolution already.
Yep.
What's going on with it?
So I've paused it. Sorry. I've paused it for the time being, but I'm just about to. So that's what I'm going to Elliot's for. Bit of an exclusive here, actually, guys.
Before that, there'll be people that probably don't know what it is. What is the Fisherman's News?
Well, if they don't know it, they shouldn't be listening. No, I'm joking. So the Fisherman's News was an idea that I had. You know what I'm like with my mad ideas. I think foods and stuff like that. The Fisherman's News was something that come about based on there not really being anywhere for the public these days. I used to love nothing more than running down to the shop on a Wednesday to grab the Carp Talk, see if me or my brother or whoever had made the pages. Not just see if we'd made it, but to actually get and be a part of the magazine. And that was a big part of our sort of lives. And to be honest, now social media's here, you think it would be easier for everyone to get their photos out, but it's kind of the opposite, because unless you've got some following, no one gets to see it. Whereas what happened back in the day, going back to it with the magazines, is there was just one magazine and everyone bought it. Whereas now there's 1,000 different or multiple thousands ways of seeing fishing pictures, but people just follow like one or two of them people, if you know what I mean, or companies, if you like. So I started to sort of concoct this idea about recreating what the magazines brought to me as a kid, because I felt part of this angling community. I'll never forget the day I was in the same pages as Terry Earn in the Carp Talk, and I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, tells a legend, and a load of the others, and I'd be like, and that's what the carp community sort of was then. Whereas now I feel like it's all it's bigger, but very sparse and separated. And the main thing that I'm getting at is I felt like no one really got their time of day anymore. Unless you're a known carp angler, little Jamie Smith, who's fishing on his local parkway, can catch he's 15 years old, catches a 12-pounder with his mate, takes a photo on his iPhone. Where's he going to get the publicity that he could have once got in the magazines? That would have got printed. Calder or Nash or Sticky Baits or whoever aren't going to put that on their page. And I think that what the Fisherman's News is brings that element back. So if little Jamie Smith does make the Fisherman's News, I'm there to report on captures. I'm not saying, everyone does make the Fisherman's News, because I sort of pick my own sort of favourites and winners of prizes and all that. And then at the end, all the others that didn't make it into the main part still roll through at the end. So everyone, and the amount of kids especially that have tagged me, they're watching it, and they tag themselves they tag themselves, oh my God, I'm on the TV, like, that's a great feeling, and they all feel part of that same community again that we once had. Now, I know it's not for everyone, it's not for everyone, but the people that it is for, they're the people that I'm trying to get together and build my own little community of anglers that want to be a part of the industry or want to be part of what's going on, or, because some people just are there doing their own thing, using fishing for their own reasons. 100% respect it and get it. But certain people want to be a part of it. They want to know what's going on. So, you've got the catch report side, you've got the trade news side, so things that you boys have got going on or whoever. You've got the big carp catches of big standout captures, and they don't have to be sponsored anglers. It could be anyone. You remember the Carp Talk? It could be Joe Boggs has caught the turtle from Welly, or whatever. He makes the main news, and everyone makes it. And the same with the trade. It doesn't matter if they're Nash or bag up baits, some guy from his garden shed. If he wants to get some promo in there, he gets his time of day as well. And that's what the magazines did. So there's loads of other little quirky bits in there, funny bits and that, but that's what it is in a 20-minute statement.
Yeah, nice. I think it's super admirable because a lot of people in your position, you could just be like, well, do you know what? This is my fishing. This is my vice. This is what I need to do. And they just get stuck into their big carp fishing. But you can tell with you, fishing is all encompassing, and it's not just yours, it's your community, and you want to be such a big part of making that community better for everyone. So I think it's really cool, and it's a really good idea. So yeah.
Cheers, I appreciate that. And yeah, just to touch on that, this is about I'm not going to beat around the bush. If I didn't have fishing, I would be dead or in prison right now. It's as simple as that. So I feel like I always owe something to fishing. Yes, I do make money out of fishing. It is my job, but I've turned my hobby into my passion and into my job, which I think is admirable. All the other lads that I see do it and make that commitment, I think it's a big commitment. But I have done it. But now I'm at the position in not only, in my life or in my journey, if you like, without getting too biblical about it, if that's the right way, where I want to make a bit of a difference. I do these, different charity events and kids events and all that I do, and I sort of see it. And I've actually got, outside of the Fisherman's News, I definitely can't go into detail of it, but I've actually got a really, really big project going on that is going to be really good for fishing, I believe. Because we're in trouble, lads. I think fishing is in trouble. Let's not beat around the bush here. We had 1.5 million rod licenses sold in 2010. 15 years later, we're now down to 900,000. And we've even introduced free rod licenses for 13 to 16-year-olds. So why are them numbers declining? We need to, I'm trying to really, I feel like people are missing out. There's a lot of young lads out there that are getting roped into other things, whereas we only had fishing, or fishing was a big part of it, and maybe we're not hitting the right buttons. I don't want to go too much into detail and give away what I'm up to, but what I am up to isn't going to cost anyone a thing. It's all free, to get people fishing. That's what I'm working on at the minute.
Yeah, I think we had a conversation with Jules on a podcast like 6 years ago about this very subject, and it's a subject in itself. We're responsible as well from Nash Tackle to do what we can to make it more inclusive for everyone. But I think one of the main points was, like, especially when I was like 10, 11, 12, fishing was so much easier to do. You could go down to your local village pond and go fishing, and everywhere I see now, you just can't do it. Yep. No fishing signs, or people don't want the hassle, like councils don't want the hassle. Carl Smith's getting kicked off every village pond he fishes. Whereas, like, that's, we were young, we couldn't drive. We had a summer holidays to try and go and fishing somewhere. And all you could do was just walk,
feral.
Just bike down to the local bit of river or the local pond or whatever, and it had to be free, and we had to. But now it's just like, for kids to be in it, they've got to invest all the kit, go to a day ticket, have their mum drop them off, spend loads of money on 24 hours or whatever, and I think it's just a lot harder than it was to just go fishing.
Definitely, and there's a lot of things that, because it takes a certain type of person to be a fisherman. We've got to have this addictive personality or ADHD or some generally. I'm not saying everyone, but we've got to be weird to sit in the middle of a field and just sit there. Like some of my mates would just be like, "What? So you're in the middle of a park?" In the middle of the night, walking around and listening for fish. And I'm like, it's sick. And I'm like, when I was a kid, anyone walking around in the park at night was a dodgy character. You know what I mean? Like, and you just can't get it. So it takes a certain type of person. It generally is, I've worked with a lot of kids now doing all these different events that we do, whether that be, what's the way of putting it? A lot of challenged kids, kids who can't find their place in this world, if you like, they've generally got, so I do work a lot with like some of the naughty schools, because they're generally some of the lads that really take to fishing. They're tree climbers, they're fighters, they're this, that, that's, you don't generally see a brain surgeon fishing, or I don't know, there's probably a few sort of jobs. Generally your average angler is either, he's a roofer, he's a builder, he works his 9 to 5. Is your working class. We're the boys, you know what I mean? That's the way I see it. We're generally the guys that just get stuck in and do something and make something of themselves. A lot of people work for themselves. They've got their own business. They're motivated. So it is this certain type of person that is for fishing. Now, whether it just we're not doing our jobs right, or maybe there's just more things for them to do. They're getting lured into other ways and avenues, and they don't know about fishing to channel it into. I don't know, but I'm going to try and do my best to try and get as many people as I can fishing. 100%. That's what it's about. Because when I know I'm banging on here, but this is important to me, so I need to say it. It all started about probably must be 5-6 years ago. I'm not going to mention his name, but there was a young lad. I have a few young lads, or lads in general. You don't have to be young to message me, but I had one young lad. He messaged me quite a lot about vlogging and getting into vlogging and all that, and asking me advice. And I said, just start on your phone, filming yourself. Yeah, don't remember, no one's ever going to see this, only you. Just film yourself talking about rigs, talking about what you're doing like that. And then when you feel confident enough, send it to me and have a look at it. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, we become really close just over social media. And you know what? He got really good at it. It was only there's always one. He got really good at it. Yeah, and I said, you know what, mate? You've got something here. He was editing up on his phone. this, and I said, try it. And he made it. He put one up on his page. And he messaged me. Long story short here, he messaged me a few weeks later and he said, mate, I'm going to jack the fishing in and the vlogging and all that. It's not for me. And I was like, what's up? What's going on? He said, well, these two old blokes messaged me and commented on my film and said, who do you think you are, Alan Blair? Get a real job. There's no money in fishing and all this. And I don't just, he said Alan Blair, so I'm saying it as it is. Mate, I was fuming. I got them, mate. If you lads are listening, mate, I hope you just apologise. They apologised to him. I rang them up, both of them. I got their numbers. They thought I wanted their number for something nice. I rung them up. I told them I give them both barrels. I just thought, who do you think you are? This lad now was not fishing on a weekend. He might go. I said, you might have affected his life that much that now instead of going fishing on a Friday, he's going to go down the pub. He might end up taking drugs. He might end up fighting. Who knows? You've just changed his life because you thought you could comment on something negative.
I literally can't get my head around it. That's
honestly,
baffling.
I was so fuming. And this is where this whole sort of community-based things that I'm doing, all these little things, the fishing show or the fisherman's news or these lives that I'm doing, you forget about the negatives. Rather than trying to change the world and change everyone, I think, you know what? I'm going to grab the people that want it, that want to be in it, and I'm going to bring them all together. And I'm going to create my own little community because then I'm happy then. I can see, if you've got these other guys that want to be negative about it or whatever, each to their own. But I've got a little community of people that I'm building and hopefully doing the right thing for them because fishing had a massive effect on my life. And we've sort of modernised the way of getting it across, haven't we? Before it was the mags and people chatting and blogs and stuff like that. Now we're using social media and events and bloody podcasts and all sorts. So
I think that's such an important point. And just on the back of that, your content, I know you've ventured into YouTube, you're good friends with Carl, and I know the impact that's had on, and I'm sure Carl won't mind me saying, the impact fishing had on his life, Everyone goes through their struggles and that. Everyone's had their issues outside of fishing, which are sometimes more important, but absolute credit, what you said there, to obviously a lot with the youngsters. And at that age as well, they're so impressionable. Like a couple of negative comments when your brain's still developing can completely change the outlook on life and how you look at things going forward. Because it's all well and good to say don't read the negative comments, but that isn't a cure, that isn't a solution. Because I think before you type. You can say it a million times, it will never stop it. But even if people listening to this, you stop 10 people who might be having a bad day and they're about to type and put someone down, just don't do it.
Yeah. There is a cure for it, and it's positivity. Yeah. And I'm never going to roll this back because it's part of the business model of the Fisherman's News, but I don't care because it's the right thing to do for fishing, and it's all about positivity. So by creating this community of people, you're creating positivity. So what happens is when there's too much negativity somewhere, positive people won't get involved, because if he comments or whatever, let's wrap it in social media, if he comments positively, he's got these dogs that jump on him, so everyone shies away. Flip that on its head, create a load of positivity, the negative guy doesn't want to comment because he's going to get pounded, yeah? So why do we want to be negative? So that's the answer to it. So create positivity, and it thrives, but giving people a positive voice is something that I'm trying to do and include more people. So what? Like I say, this is the model of what the Fisherman's News is, but it doesn't matter. I want everyone in the industry to hear this. I've already noticed this is a bit of a movement, and I want everyone in this industry to say, we're going to include our audience more, because all we've been doing for the last 10 years, let's have it right, lads, is we've been going, watch our guys, they know what they're doing. If you want to learn, yes, there is loads of learning content, but what I'm saying is we're not giving anyone who's, we're saying, watch our stuff, buy our stuff, go and enjoy yourself at fishing. But what we're not saying is, what are you catching with our stuff, or, thank you for using our stuff. We're going to put you, I feel like it takes, maybe it's something for the Fisherman's News to come about to be able to do this. That's why I've done it, because I think we should be including our audience more. Let's see what they're doing. Give them their time of day. Give them their 2 minutes of, fame, if you want to call it that. Give them their recognition that they deserve for giving up their time to watch your films or our films. Now, I'm not pointing the finger at you here. I think we're all, as an industry, need to do it more and start including our audience more. And I think we'll create a lot more of a positive place, because all we're doing at the minute is getting everyone watching our stuff. So that's going to breed negativity. We need to include our audience more. And that's what this Fisherman's News is going to do. It's now turned into a live format, which is going to allow me to bring more people into it from the public. So I'm going to bring them in when they've caught special fish, get them in on live. We're going to be running live comments, answering questions and all that. So again, giving them voices. And I'm not saying everyone has to do this, and I'm probably sounding a little bit too opinionated here, but I'm hoping that it's all starting to point in a positive direction. And I do hope that all the companies start including, because what's the way of putting it? Maybe the public needs to think a bit more about maybe having better photography, but I don't think it should. I think if someone's taken a shot on their iPhone and he's been out and he's bought your bait or he's bought your tackle and he's gone out his way to send you that picture, it deserves its time somewhere. So maybe that's why the Fisherman's News is there, because most of the companies, they've got their own content that they're creating, they're paying a lot of money to do it, they're keeping their page nices, and I get it. So whether this means you need a Nash public posting page or whatever, Nash customers page, Nash users page or whatever, this is like, and I know I'm giving the Fisherman's News model away here, but it's not about business. It's not about making a load of money. It's not about that. It's about making it a better place. So I think this could reach out to the right people, hopefully. If you get any reach. How many thousands and millions of views are we going to get on this?
Hundreds again, is it?
Yeah. I think include the audience is the message I'm trying to send.
Yeah.
That's quality, mate. Quality.
And it's something we've always thought about. We've got a couple of new videos coming out, which we won't touch on yet. I want to see where the rough cut is. But getting back to that, Urban Banks did such a good job of it, Alan, going into the community. And it wasn't about, we felt at that point, it was all about you have to go catch 40-pounder to be noticed. And I think Alan, more than a lot of people, made it very cool to go and catch 10-pound koi, where it wasn't cool at all, 10 years ago. And he did such a good job, but kind of ran its course. And we're always in the office trying to brainstorm, how can we get back involved with having that community feel that Urban Banks brought to a load of like misfit lads who don't have a syndicate, but didn't realise that the canal at the bottom of the street actually has some carping. I can go fishing there. So it's a great message, mate. It's really good. I'm really looking forward to see where it goes.
Just to cover me arse a little bit there, actually, I've probably gone the wrong direction with saying that all we're doing is saying do this. Well, everyone is doing great jobs. I shouldn't have said it the way I've said it. Everyone is doing their own little bit for communities. Corder are doing great things. You boys are doing great things. Everyone is. But I feel like can be more inclusion.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think, like you say, the biggest gap was left when the magazine started dying, because that was a really good platform for it. It's really well spotted. And
so maybe it is, a case of, right, don't do it yourselves, guys. Send all your content to us, and we'll get out of the Fisherman's News. Maybe it is. That's what this should be. You know what I mean? It's somewhere else. Happy days.
Yeah,
it's gonna cost you.
Looking forward to see where it goes, mate.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'm going to start to wrap it up, but I've got one agony Alf. Do you know what agony Alf is?
No.
So on these podcasts, we've got Alfie here. He's got very simple mind. And we've asked people to send in their kind of moral dilemmas around carp fishing. It might be something tactical based. It might be something that they've done which is perhaps a bit naughty or frowned upon, and wants Alfie's opinion with his simple brain and outlook to give them advice on their situation. So I've got one here. You're going to jump in as well and help oh my God, I can't remember his name. Matt. I'm going to help Matt. He's actually said to me, messaged me saying he went on a tuition with you like 10 years ago in Oxford.
All right.
Stole his money or something. No. But so you may know this guy. I'll show you him afterwards. So
Is it Matt Tippany?
it is Matt Tippany, yeah.
I remember him all, mate.
Yeah, good lad.
Yeah, he is. Oxford lad.
So, wow.
Wow.
Dear Agony Alf, I find myself in a right pickle. I'm 30 years old, still living at home in the glorious Oxfordshire countryside, where, I must confess, I've been utterly spoilt rotten with carp fishing. Life was all bivvies, boilies and bliss, until the cruel mistress of adulthood reared her head. You see, my girlfriend and I have just got a mortgage in principle. Sadly, unless we fancy shoehorning ourselves into a one-bed shoebox in Oxford, a lot of shoes in there, our budget says absolutely not. So we're packing up and heading to the Midlands, Coventry, Leicester, Birmingham, that sort of way, where apparently your money goes a bit further than just a garden shed. Here's the issue. Where on earth am I going to fish? I've toyed with the idea of trekking it back to Oxford every weekend, but with a fresh mortgage, that feels about as sensible as using my credit card for maggots. The other option, of course, is to bin the missus off and keep sponging off my mum and dad. Stop putting your thumbs up, Scott. But that feels like a Netflix documentary waiting to happen. So, Agony Alf, please help me. Are there any decent day tickets or club waters in the Midlands where a lost Oxfordshire carp angler can feel at home? Without your guidance, I feel that I'll forever be a lonely man staring into a bucket of pellets, reminiscing about the good old days in the Thames Valley. And of course, if you know any syndicates or hidden gems around there, please keep that strictly for an email response, not on the podcast, because I don't want the whole world piling in. Thanks, Matt. So that's his dilemma. He's moving to somewhere it's not quite as good as carp fishing to better his life with his beautiful girlfriend. What does he do, lads?
Well, if you're asking me, I need to phone a friend because he's asking for venues, first of all, in that neck of the woods. But first of all, it's not that far away from Oxford. And your crew, aren't you, Scott? So your Oxford is like past him and further, and you still make it happen. Basically, Matt, wasn't it? Sorry.
Yeah.
How much do you want it?
Well,
That's
he
what
said
you
it's
got.
too expensive to be doing it.
What, in terms of fuel? Is that what he's on
I'm
about?
guessing so, yeah.
Red diesel.
Great.
Have you heard of it? Yeah.
Electric.
Yeah. I don't know venues wise, mate. In terms of that area, that's not my area of expertise. I'm going to phone a friend. Scott, anyone in that area, you know, great venues that live up to the Oxford, Stone Acres, Christchurch type?
I'm not going to give him a venue. I think... See, I know Matt, but at the same time, this goes out to anyone. I think rather than just be given something on a plate, I think have a look on Google Earth. I do this a lot. You know, I'll Google Earth it, look in the area, zoom in. All of a sudden, you're sparking your own interest straight away. You know what I mean? Have a look, zoom in on something, and then see what it is. You know, oh, that's this lake or whatever. You know, I know that he is an angler that will go to his local canal, go to his local rivers, untrodden paths, and he's not defined by size of carp. He does like little sort of, scaly carp, not so much little, just scaly carp and stuff like that. He likes his bit of history behind the fish and that. So, yeah, I would say that maybe the canals and the rivers would be a good start for him. I know he's a working lad, he grafts, so time and money probably are a struggle, hence he's moving out. So, but I know he gets a kick and a buzz out of a bend in the rod. So I would say to him, rather than focus on a lake and be surrounded by people and people he probably doesn't know and he can't understand because they're from Birmingham or something, just get himself on the canals and rivers. Don't give it up. Don't you dare sell that tackle, Matt. This is directly to you and directly to any carp angler. If you're ever thinking about selling your kit, message me and I'll buy it cheap. No, don't do it. Don't, especially them bits that mean something to you. Because once you've got rid of them, you'll never get it back. I promise you. Like, look, things are replaceable. Things are materialistic in fishing, but there's certain things that you can't sell. But yeah, I know I've gone off on a tangent there. Stick to the rivers and to the canals I would go for, mate. And then start to put your ear to the ground with some of the lads that you're meeting and that. And I think you'll start to build a few fishing friends then. And then rather than being the outsider, you can start to be a part of something, you know.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I know it's a fishing podcast. We're all, die-hard anglers, but it's such an important part of your life. Like, if it takes a back seat for 12 months while you get your first house with your girlfriend in somewhere new, just enjoy it, cherish it. Fishing will be there when you get back. And you will, like you say, that there is fishing and adventures to be had anywhere you're willing to look for them. So you will find something, but right now, probably carp fishing being at the forefront of your decision making is not the right thing. You know, go enjoy your new life, get your new house, get it all sorted, then you can get back into the fishing.
Yeah, I like this section. You just give me a new section idea for the Fisherman's News.
Yeah, you're a lot better than me as well.
Agony Scott doesn't really roll off the tongue the same there, does it?
On the spot with Scott, we're calling it.
Go.
There we go.
We've had some absolute belters in the past, mate. People like shitting their pants and getting caught doing it. And
really?
What do they do?
Women bailiffs.
Okay. Women bailiffs taking a fancy to.
Oh yeah, what weight was she on?
But honestly, it's our favourite bit. So yeah, keep sending them in quickly before Scott takes our idea. We'll do them every podcast. So yeah.
You definitely need to. But are we? What is that? It?
I think we're about wrapped up.
I can tell you about the Noodle Rig again, or the Fisherman's News, or
we'll go have a cup of tea and we'll listen to that one again.
Yeah, this is end of part 1. We're coming back for another 3 hours in a minute, guys. No, is that it? You know what? This has been nice, lads. You know, because it's not been anything. Obviously, you guys haven't briefed me ahead of time. You know, it was a bit like just sort of off the cuff a cappella, which has been nice because I think you always get a legitimate answer out of people as well. You know, I've done a few podcasty type things in the past before, and it's been a bit like, old previous capture bases and all that. But it's almost like I like this because you could do them every week and it'd be different answers and different questions. So fair play, lads.
Thank you, mate. And
I like this.
When we brought it back, we wanted to just do it conversational. Wherever the conversation goes, it takes us, and wherever it goes with you is over there.
My mind's crazy, man.
But it's really, really good to have it's just a few lads talking about fishing, and we hopefully people listen to it, watching it, also enjoy it as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
for tuning your ear off. This is me, ADHD. I'm 2 months sober, by the way, at the minute.
Congrats.
So this is people might not have heard or seen this side to me because I use alcohol as a suppression of it, which is a really bad thing to do, by the way, honestly. So that's why I'm really pranging at the minute. So apologies. And I had a Red Bull.
It's incredible, mate.
Absolutely wicked, mate. Really, really appreciate you coming down. And we'll get you on again in the next few months, maybe, some point.
Fans of quartering.
Oh, yeah, they are coming for you.
All right.
Nice one.
Cheers,
mate.
Scott. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, bud.
Bye, guys.